We're now ready for one of our keynotes. Let's please welcome to the stage the lead for the Inertial Fusion Energy Initiative at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. They are making history with scientific breakthroughs. She's an Asia Society West Gamechanger honoree. Please welcome Tammy Ma.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me today to talk about one of my favorite topics, igniting the future with fusion. This image I find just absolutely breathtaking. It is an image taken by NASA satellites of the Earth at night. But more than that, this image is a map of the world's energy usage. Because where there are large populations, big cities, it shows up bright on this map, right? And in fact, you can even see in some cases entire outlines of countries. Now, what I find fascinating about this picture is that we know that over the coming decades, this map will actually get a whole lot brighter, especially as third world nations hopefully can raise their standards of living, because we know that energy usage is directly correlated. Standards of living are directly correlated to energy usage. And I'm sure all of you have heard that our energy demands are going to go up exponentially in the near future, because we have data centers, we have AI. Over the past decade, data centers have increased their energy usage by a factor of 3. And we expect that by the year 2028, that energy is going to double or triple again in just a few years. So, how are we going to meet this growing demand for energy? Because of course, we want that energy to not only be sustainable, we want it to be clean, we want it to be abundant. Well, sometimes the answer is right in front of us. The sun and the stars are powered by fusion. And the idea behind fusion is actually quite simple. You take a light element. In this case, we're going to use deuterium and tritium. They are isotopes of hydrogen, heavy hydrogen. And if you can get those atoms close enough together, hot enough, dense enough, that they fuse, what they create on the other side is a helium nucleus and a neutron, and with that, a huge amount of energy. How does this actually work? Well, it's actually quite simple. In fusion, the products, the helium and the neutron, actually weigh a little bit less than the deuterium and tritium originally did. So that differential in mass goes into an equation that everybody knows, even if you're not a scientist, E equals mc squared, where that m is that difference in mass, and we're going to multiply it by c, the speed of light, huge number, because light is fast, squared. And with that, you get a huge amount of energy out. So how much energy, you're asking? Well, 1 single pound of fusion fuel is equivalent to the amount of energy in 5,000 barrels of oil, or 3.5 million pounds of coal. So that's why fusion is what we call the holy grail of energy. Not only because it's very dense, but because a bunch of other positives as well. First of all, it's abundant. Deuterium, one of those 2 ingredients that we need, is actually naturally occurring in seawater. About 1 in every 6,500 particles is D2O instead of H2O. That means in our oceans alone, we actually have enough fuel for 30 billion years of energy at today's rate of usage. Now, tritium, we do have to breed. You breed it by bombarding lithium with neutrons. We know how to do it quite well. So fusion is very abundant. It's also carbon-free. In that equation, it was a deuterium plus tritium gave you a helium, right? Carbon is nowhere in the equation. It's also safe. Fusion is inherently safe because in order to get your atoms to fuse, you first have to deliver a decent amount of energy into your system. So if you ever want fusion to stop, you just cut off that initial energy source. There's also no high-level nuclear waste associated with fusion. It is different from conventional nuclear power plants of today, which use fission, which is the breaking down of heavy elements. And in that case, you do create a lot of waste that has to be buried in geological repositories. We don't have that with fusion. It is compatible with the grid. It's envisioned that fusion power plants would be hundreds of megawatt, gigawatt scale, similar to power plants of today, could plug into the grids of today. And finally, flexible products. Not only can fusion provide electricity to the grid, it could also generate high temperature heat for industrial uses. So, fusion, wonderful, right? But how do we actually do it here on Earth? Because the sun, pretty big, 1 million miles across, right? Well, we're not going to be able to do that. Instead, we're going to create stars that are on the order of 2/1000ths of an inch, about half the diameter of a human hair. Okay, so let me introduce you to my laboratory. It is the National Ignition Facility, or NIF, at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. It's about 50 miles east of San Francisco. And the NIF is the world's largest, most energetic laser. It is the size of 3 American football fields, side by side, 10 stories tall. And if I take the roof off the building, I give you a look inside. It's actually not just one giant laser, but 192 separate lasers, each one alone one of the most energetic in the world. And this building is essentially filled with optics, where we are amplifying the laser up until it gets more and more energetic. And then we take all of that laser energy, and we're going to focus it down onto a little fusion pellet, about 2 millimeters in diameter, here held up to a human eye, that's going to hold our fusion fuel, that deuterium and tritium. So I know this is difficult to conceptualize, so let me play you a little video to show you how it all comes together.
Shot director, ready for shot.
So this is the NIF control room where I, as a physicist, have spent many hours running experiments.
Clock is running. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, shot.
So first the laser is going to be born here in the master oscillator room. It starts out as a fiber laser at a nanojoule level, so it's about 1,000 times less energy than a typical laser pointer. We take the laser and split it 48 ways. It goes into the preamplifier, bounces 60 to 100 times, getting amplified up to the millijoule level. So that's about a laser pointer each. Each beam then gets split another 4 ways and gets sent into the main amplifier module, bounces 4 times back and forth across the giant facility. And at this point, each beam is going to be amplified up to the kilojoule level, so a million billion times of amplification. And each beam is now about 40 by 40 centimeters in size. The reason it is so big is because it contains so much energy, we actually have to spread that energy out as it's traveling through the optics, so as not to blow up the optics themselves. Now, all 192 lasers are going to approach the target chamber. That's that blue ball, about 10 meters in diameter, 30 feet. Half our laser beams get sent up, half gets sent down. And watch this, they're all going to sync up. And we're going to change the color of that laser from red to green to UV, blue light. And each beam now gets focused down to about the diameter of a human hair and is focused onto our target. It goes into a little canister where we're going to hit the inside wall of this little canister, generating an enormous flux of X-rays. And then we use those X-rays to test the fuel capsule that sits right in the middle, heating it up at the same time. The temperature is hotter than the center of the sun and much, much denser than the center of the Earth. And if we do it just right, we get fusion ignition, more energy out of our experiment than we put in with the lasers. Oh, it gets better. It gets better. So guess what? After 60 years of dedicated research by thousands of people, we did it. Ignition. In December of 2022, we were able to demonstrate more energy out of our experiment than we put in for the very first time in human history in a controlled laboratory setting. So we hit ignition. It was a huge breakthrough. And of course, people were asking, well, was this a fluke? Did you guys just get lucky? Well, I'm very happy to announce that in the time since December of 2022, we've repeated ignition 8 more times. So for a total of 9 times, more energy out, that's the white bar, than we put in with the laser. And in April of this year, we were actually able to have our most successful shot to date, where we achieved a target gain greater than 4, over 4 times more energy out than we put in. So, are we done? Can we now harness this energy? Well, not quite. In order to turn this into a power plant, right, this form of energy has to be commercially viable, right? So the target, we still have to get gains much, much higher, on the order of 50 to 100 times more energy out than you put in. We'd also have to repeat our reaction about 10 times a second at 10 hertz. Currently, the NIF, as I just showed you, is an experimental facility. It is not a power plant. So there's still a lot of engineering science we have to do to make this viable. But let me show you another video to see what a power plant might actually look like. So if we zoom in, imagine this is a facility that's about the same size as the NIF. We're going to have in the middle a fusion engine. So you see a chamber similar to the NIF, lasers coming in from the top and bottom, and now we're going to have to inject targets at about 10 times a second. The lasers would track the target and then shoot right when it got to the center. The energy would come out in the form of neutrons, energetic neutrons. Those neutrons are going to get absorbed by a blanket and a wall. Those neutrons get slowed down, and as they do so, they deposit their energy in the wall, turning into heat. And once you have heat, then you can run a steam turbine and generate electricity in a very conventional way. So this movie makes it look simple. But obviously, there's still a lot more work to do. We need to figure out the materials that can withstand these very extreme conditions. We have to improve the efficiency of our lasers to make the whole thing economical. We have to get the targets cheaper. And so you must be asking yourself, if there's still so much work to do in fusion, right? If this challenge is so enormous, why are you hearing so much excitement in the system? You're hearing about new companies popping up, money being invested. Well, it's because right now, at this very moment in time, we're seeing a confluence that we've never seen before in science, technology, and investment. Not only for us on the NIF with our laser fusion approach have we achieved ignition, at other facilities around the world like the JET tokamak in the UK, they have reached groundbreaking plasma conditions as well. We're seeing with technology things like new superconducting magnets that allow your entire facility to get a lot smaller. There's next generation high power lasers that Livermore is helping to develop. And then on the investment side, over $10 billion in venture capital and private investment has gone into fusion in just the last couple of years, with over 50 new startups worldwide. And so, with all of this coming together, we are getting closer than ever. And let me leave you with another idea for how close we are. So I mentioned to you that now on the NIF, we've achieved a gain of 4. In order to actually have a self-sustaining plant, right? If you could generate just enough energy for the power plant to run itself and not to feed energy out to the grid, you would need a gain of about 15. We expect to get there on the NIF in just the next couple of years. And how do I know that? Because in the last 10 years, since we turned on our laser, we've actually improved our gains by over a factor of 1,000 already. So we are getting quite close. And since we're in Seattle, let me leave you with one more analogy. We've been comparing the breakthrough of ignition to the Wright brothers moment in 1903, where they demonstrated human flight for the very first time. Imagine that moment of lift when human beings were able to get off the ground. Now, what's remarkable with flight is just 53 years later. The Boeing 707 demonstrated, carried passengers in a commercial flight for the very first time. 53 years, that's less than a lifetime in most cases. And the wingspan of this Boeing 707 was greater than the entire distance those Wright brothers flew. So technology, innovation, is just absolutely exciting. And if we can demonstrate fusion to be a viable energy source, it will allow for energy security, energy sovereignty for every country. How many wars have we fought over? Energy. So fusion, still a lot of work to do. It's a big challenge. But the payoff, if we can make fusion work, is enormous. So I look forward to igniting the future with fusion. Thank you.